Assalamu alaikum. My name is Danish Gazdar, and I'm a fellow member of ACC and a certified company secretary from PICG. Today, we are going to talk about the key information which needs to be placed for the decision by the board. So, a board meeting is usually conducted through a specified agenda, but we need to be clear that what needs to be inserted in the agenda of any board meeting. So this has been extracted by the from the Public Sector Corporate Governance Rules 2013, which has been issued by the SECP. So these are some key points which need to be placed for decision by the board. The board shall establish appropriate arrangements to ensure it has access to all relevant information, advice, and resources necessary to enable it to carry out its role effectively. Following significant issues shall be placed before the board for its information and consideration in order to formalize and strengthen the corporate decision-making process. So the first thing is mentioned as annual business plan, cash flow projections, forecasts, and long-term plans. So of course we know that the board is concerned with the long-term or strategic decision-making of the company. Board would not be really interested in day-to-day routine matters. So if we talk about the strategic planning, so annual business plan, cash flow projections, forecasts, and variance analyses, all of these are extremely important for the board to know about it. Secondly, internal audit reports, especially if there is any fraud or irregularities, that is a very important information for the board to know, because if fraud or corruption is not controlled in any company, then the company can face serious issues. It could even lead to, in extreme circumstances, lead to liquidation of companies. So the board needs to be apprised on these matters. Thirdly, the management letters, which is issued by the external auditors at the end of the completion of the audit. So these points are actually addressed to the board in the form of a cover letter to the board. So the board needs to be aware of these points. Details of joint ventures or collaboration agreements, agreement with distributors, agents, etc. So the summary of these agreements, or the key points which are with these various stakeholders, they need to be informed to the board. The board will not have time to read every agreement, but they certainly need to be made aware of the key points which are in these agreements. And always we need to think like what would affect or impact in the longer term to the company. So if we keep this in mind, so it would be easier to present this detail to the board. Promulgation or amendment of a law, rule, or regulation, enforcement of an accounting standard, or any such matters as may affect the company. So if there is any amendment of law, rule, or regulation, there could be several amendments. For example, in the income tax ordinance, in the Companies Act, in the Association of NPO Objects Regulation. Amendments are coming, they are coming often. So one has to collect all these amendments and present the board in a meaningful manner where they understand that if there is any change, how would that change impact the company. The fifth thing is that status and implication of any lawsuit of material nature filed by or against the company. So of course this is really important, because any lawsuit has consequences. It has a winning losing chance, and the board needs to be made aware of this. And in fact, IS 37, International Accounting Standard 37, contingent liabilities, that also I believe states that a disclosure needs to be made of any pending lawsuit in the financial statements. So the financial statements are of course approved by the board, so this is automatically an item which needs to be seen by the board. Any show cause notice received from any regulatory authority. So again, this should be shared with the board, because a show cause from a regulatory authority cannot be taken lightly. and the board needs to be apprised about that. Material payment of government dues, including income tax, excise, and custom duties. So these can be presented as a summary to the board that in the last quarter these payments were made XYZ. Then the intercorporate investments and loans from associated concerns has in which the business group or with the company is a part of significant interest. So if there are any loans or related matters, these need to be shared with the board. Policies related to awards of contracts and purchase of materials. So the policies are by default approved by the board. This is something which needs to be made clear, that all the policies are approved by the board. The CEO alone has not the authority to approve the policies. So of course the award of contracts also need to be made, uh, policies related to such also need to be made aware to the board. Default in payment of principal interest, including penalties on late payments. So if there are any penalties to the banks or any institution, the board needs to be made aware of it. Failure to recover material amounts of loans, advances, and deposits made by the public sector companies. So if there is a failure in receivable, there are bad debts, so the board needs to be made aware of it. Any significant accidents, dangerous occurrences, the board needs to be made aware of these dangerous occurrences, because an incident might appear as immaterial. However, if the accident involves, for example, an environmental issue and some non-profit organization or any uh, interest group emerges, and that can become a nightmare for any company, and the company needs to be serious on these matters. Then we have the significant public or product liability claims. If there are serious customer claims made against the company, the board needs to be made aware of these. These can be in the form of a lawsuit, or it can even be in the form of negative social media campaigns. So all of this can have adverse effect on the company. It can lead to a significant decrease in the share price. Disputes with labor and this proposed solutions. So if there is any labor union or something, and there are disputes going on, the board needs to be made aware of it. Payment for goodwill, brand equity, or intellectual property, annual, quarterly, monthly accounts. So this should be a standard item for the agenda, the quarterly, monthly accounts to be approved by the board. If there are any reports on governance, risk, and compliance issues, those need to be made aware of to the board. Whistleblower protection mechanism, report on CSR, corporate social responsibility, and related party transactions. Related party transactions are covered in detail in IAS 24, ISA 550, and there is also mention. There's a separate section in the Companies Act also, which gives a mechanism in order to determine the related parties. So the board need to give a disclosure about their own holdings in various companies. If they are directors or major shareholders or something like that, they need to give a disclosure so that the related party disclosure can be accurately recorded in the financial statements. So these are some key items which the board should know about, and this completes our video, and thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like the channel. Thank you.